Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's edition of the Players NIL Industry Insider Podcast. And today we have a special guest, a gentleman that I met maybe 10 plus years ago now in the sports and entertainment industry. We've connected, we've stayed connected, and I'm so appreciative of him joining us today. Eddie Capobianco. Eddie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I would say it's been 10 plus years that we've known each other. So I'm
Yeah,
happy to be here and speak to you.
good. Well, we want to get into your career. You're the VP of Influence and Talent Marketing at the National Football League, otherwise known as the NFL. Whenever you say NFL, people's eyes open up. But we don't want to dwell on that. We want to dwell on your story, and we want to dwell on your wisdom and draw from you some guidance for young athletes. But we do have to have it a little bit personal, Eddie. So tell us a little bit about your childhood. You were a sports fan, your first introduction to sports. Who were your childhood heroes? Tell us a little bit about that background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was raised in Brooklyn, New York. Um, I started out as a all New York fan, Yankees, Knicks. And my father is from Italy, born and raised. My mother's from Nicaragua, born and raised. And so my father is a tailor, still a tailor. He's 89 years old, still a tailor. Lucky enough, I got to see hard work of my entire childhood, so that left a lasting effect on me. But fast forward, he had a business in Manhattan. He decided to pick up the family and move us to California when I was 10, and that's when my fandom changed because that's where my Nicaraguan side was, my aunts and uncles, and I spent a lot of time with my aunts, and I'd watch these women passionately yell at the screen at San Francisco Giants, 49ers games. So as a kid, you love your family and you see your aunts and you want to join in on what they're excited about. So I became a San Francisco Giants fan and 49er fan at 10, and that was it for me. Childhood sports heroes are funny, like Will Clark, Kevin Mitchell, which are like so different from other people, right? Obviously, the thing about the Niners and Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Ronnie Lott. And there were others, Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, like those guys, and Michael Jordan, obviously. Um, and then we lived in San Francisco for a bit. Moved to Palm Springs of all places. My father decided to open a tailor shop there. I was a little shocked, to be quite honest, going from big city to Palm Springs, California, which it's not like what it is today. People don't realize that because Coachella and all these other things put it on the map. But I went to high school there, went to Palm Springs High, and then immediately left when I was 18. And interesting enough, I don't know how I did it, but pretty pretty I was pretty smart in high school, and I was all everything pointed for me to be a doctor. Pre-med, got a bunch of scholarships, chose USC, good med school program. Moved to LA. Again, I was 18 years old, left home, and I remember. And let me rewind a bit because you think about like your family always says, be a doctor, be a lawyer. So, I was following that path. So anyway, I took pre-med courses, absolutely hated it. I'm like, this is not for me. I just not what you think it is, right? And um, long story short, I went to see a counselor at school because I wanted to change my major. I switched a bunch of times, by the way. But he just, counselors tell you, what they can, and still wasn't helping me. But on my way out, this is fate. On my way out, my backpack fell and it was unzipped, and a bunch of CDs fell out. And he looks at me, he's like, "Oh, you have a lot of CDs. Are you into music?" And I said, "Yeah, I absolutely love music." And he's like, "Well, we have a music business program. You should try it out." And took one course. I had to learn an instrument to get into the music business school, which was kind of interesting. I just learned a couple pieces, got in, and that was it, man. I loved music business. I loved everything about it. And it was, I felt guilty because I was passionate about it. And I was so lucky that I was able to realize that um, chasing passion makes you happy, right? And to get that at 19, 20 years old is great because a lot of people don't realize they'll chase money and not chase passions. Money comes later. And so, I mean, if I could tell you, like, I'm the true story of starting from the bottom, sorry, and working my way up. That's what it was. I was an intern when I was 20 years old. I would take a 2 hour bus ride, work for free at Interscope Records. That was back in 99, 2000. But I wanted to be in it. I wanted to be in music. So I interned, put my head down, sent out 1,000 packages a day, got coffee, did whatever I could. I wanted to be there because I got to be around the business and learn as much as I could. Graduated from USC in '01. Obviously, a lot of kids nowadays expect as soon as I graduate, I'm going to get this job that pays a lot of money. Not true for me. My first job was $10 an hour. I took what I could because I wanted to be in music and entertainment and sports is cutthroat, right? Like you don't, everybody wants to be in it. And you either dad or your mom owns a business and you get in or you work your way in. So, yeah, that's when my career started. I was interning and, um, I, I tried, $10 an hour, like I said, in copyright law, hated it. Saw a marketing job up in San Francisco at Universal Music Group, applied, got the interview. They told me that they already had a candidate in mind, but they just wanted to meet me. I was able to change their mind because I said that I had common sense, which is insane. You think about that. Common sense is so important these days, and people don't realize how important. I think about that these days when I interview people, when they say they have common sense and they understand just general etiquette and mannerisms, like that leads. But that was my first job in marketing, and I worked in San Francisco for a bit and through Universal Music Group. I ended up handling the Western US for a bunch of artists. I met so many artists, and then it just kept going. I changed to digital back in 2011 when it switched from a tangible, physical like CDs to streaming and downloading. I got to see the first inner workings of Spotify and Apple Music, and all along, um, I was dealing with artists that were influencers. So I was always a part of influencer marketing because I got to see it. They're walking billboards, right? These people that go on tour and they engage so many people, millions of people globally. They're wearing, it could be a brand or a t-shirt or a hat. People see that and they get influenced by it. So all along I'm in it, and I ended up reaching out to New Era Headwear, which is the official hat of MLB. It's a company that's been around 100 years. And I'll never forget this. I reached out and I said, and I was handling partnership marketing at the time for InGrooves. And I said, I've got three artists and they all wear hats. Macklemore, Kendrick Lamar, and Mac Miller. This was back in 2011. And they just basically said, we'll send some hats, but we not too well versed in the space. Could you tell us more? I built out a deck and it turned into a job where they said, why don't you run entertainment marketing for New Era? So I did that for 7 years. And you think about that's 2012 to 2019. And prior to that, I was in music. The whole time it's influencer marketing. I'm working with artists. I'm trying to get brands to gift them things. And then fast forward to 2019, the NFL reached out and basically said, we need to get younger. We need to get culturally relevant. We've seen what you've done in the space. Sorry, I saw a job and I applied and it turned into where I am now. And where I am now is unbelievable because I was able to, the thing about the National Football League, which you may know, Mark, is that rewind 5, 6 years, it's a very conservative league. Like you don't expect it to really work with rappers and creators, right? And so I'll never forget my interviews. It was 11 interviews, and I met with the group, very progressive, amazing people. They were also new, and they just said we need to get younger. And so I really had to learn what was the problem. And um, 2019, there was the Kaepernick stuff, right? There's a lot of that going on. Understanding what youth cares about. So all to say, like, I studied through our consumer insights team the behaviors of youth to understand what they really loved and cared about. And based on that, we built an entire influencer program for the league, including a music strategy. So using insights and marketing priorities and growth audiences is how we built out a whole strategy for that for the NFL.
It's quite a journey. It's really interesting. Um, and it's two things that I think people are passionate about: music and sports, right? And I tell people all the time, sports fan. That phrase "fan" is short for fanatic, right? We love our sports in America, no question about it. And music is passionate too. But we have one of our founding principles of our business, Eddie, is how do you use athletics to better your life? And I tell people all the time, that's the focus that I'm in. That's what I do. But I understand that it could be music, it could be art, it could be fashion, it could be culinary arts, right? It could be food. But if you have a passion, then think about the future. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? So when those CDs fell out of your bag, maybe it was serendipity, and that advisor started asking about music. It clicked something in your head. So as a young person today, how do you know what to chase? How do you know what the dream should be? Like looking back now with your years of wisdom, in that moment, did you have any idea where you wanted to go? Or did you just understand that you love music?
No, I didn't. As I mentioned, I was pre-med and I thought I was going to be a doctor. And until I understood or the opportunity arose of becoming a music business major and I got to learn the business, it fueled me. Like I was different. I was just so happy. And by that very moment, I understood like, all right, I'm passionate about this space. I love going to shows. I love going to record stores and digging for music. And there's a lot of kids that I mentor now, and they always ask me for advice about where they should work and all those types of things. And I'm really I'm what I think is very important, and I always say this is that, I said it earlier, you chase passion. You don't chase money. Money will come. If you're able to identify, you sit down and write four things you care about, the music, sports, fashion, food, I don't know what it is, and find any way in. It could be a part-time job, it could be an internship. And learn the business and follow that passion, and I promise you, you'll be much happier and money will come. And I'm also a big believer too of um like the energy you put out is what you get back. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's so true. If you're a kind person, if you've got etiquette and you're respectfully curious and you ask questions, you learn and you meet people, you'll be taken care of. You will. And that's what I truly believe happened to me. Like I was just a very nice person and I really wanted to be in this business and I asked questions and I took risks, another thing which following your gut, man, over your heart. That is people I know that again, I know it's cliche stuff, but it's real things. It really is.
Yeah. It's funny, a good common friend of ours, Joe Cannon, used to work at Sports Studio. Um, he had lost his job after college in a startup in Silicon Valley. He was living at home. I put an ad in Sports Studio in Craigslist for Sports Studio for a Facebook manager. This was kind of before we knew what social media phrase meant. Had 500 kids apply, 500 people apply. Through a not very scientific process, I found Joe Cannon, and he drove an hour and a half every morning from Chino Hills to Culver City, California. And he left at 5:30 in the morning to beat the traffic. And I'd get to work and he'd be sleeping in his car. And I've told this story. Joe will be mad for me for sharing it publicly, maybe, but I knew at that time, and it was like $10 an hour for 10 hours a week. It was a nothing job. But I knew at that time he was different, in terms of his passion. And we know Joe's gone on to do great things at Hyper Ice, and it's a $1 billion business now, but it's a great analogy. So young people today, first of all, let's go back to social media and how it's evolved. I mean, 20 years ago, we didn't know what social media was. Facebook was one of the first things. What's your first exposure to social media personally? Do you remember what platform you're on and how'd you use it?
Yeah, I'm dating myself. I'm 45 years old, so AOL was
Oh,
America Online. It's kind of funny to even think about that. But getting on that and getting on the internet, I'll never forget. I still remember the first website I ever visited. It was NBA.com, National Basketball Association, because I loved basketball.
yeah.
Huge Kobe fan, huge Shaq fan. And I'll never forget that I wanted to get online just to go to NBA to see what it was. But my first professional like introduction to social was through Interscope Records when I was working with artists like No Doubt and Limp Bizkit at the time and Eminem and Marilyn Manson. I literally, as a kid at 19, 20 years old, and remember, I'm interning, and similar to Joe, I was taking an hour bus ride each way and turning for free. They gave me this video camera to go out to different video shoots and grab B-roll footage of these artists and grab whatever I could. I'll never forget this guy. His name is Ray IB, and he's just like, just go out there and grab footage, and just grab what you think is cool. So I'm like, you're an intern. You're like, okay, you want to do the best job you can. So I just decided to do what I thought would be cool. Came back with all the footage, and I said, all right, well, I got the footage. He's like, all right, learn Adobe Premiere and make a clip. And when you're young, a lot of kids can figure out programs, right? And luckily, I was pretty technical, so I learned Adobe Premiere pretty quickly just by clicking around. And I made like a minute and a half spot, like. And I bet if we look at it now, we'll probably all laugh at it because it's probably not as professional. Anyway, I made those spots, and those were featured on like Yahoo Sports and Yahoo News and things. And looking back, those were like the first sort of like influencer marketing clips that I got to work on. And we're talking back in 2000, so
Yeah.
20 years ago, and then it grew on from that, obviously.
So for the purpose of this discussion, we're going to stay on sports. I know musicians are
Yep.
influencers and there's food influencers and whatnot. We have this thing called name, image, and likeness today. NIL, it's referred to. And as we talked about in the preamble, the athletes that are getting paid to play and using the transfer portal to get more money and move on is a small segment of college athletes. And now we have almost 39 states that allow NIL in high school. So I work with young people aged 16 and above. And first of all, they think because they have a social media account that they're influencers. They're not. But they don't know what to do when it comes to engaging an audience, telling a story. So the first thing I want to ask is, what does influencer marketing really mean? Help me understand what influencer marketing means.
Influencer marketing, if I want to simplify it, it's basically a brand um, working with an influencer to engage their audience, and to grow their audience. And it's as simple as that. If I really had to simple, there's more to it, obviously, but
Yeah,
that's really what it is, right? You've got brands are trying to grow, and I think all brands, the smart brands, understand who their growth audience are, right? And so they'll target a lot of athletes, young athletes, because young athletes have usually younger followers, and that's who they want to engage. And so it's essentially that, utilizing a influencer or an athlete or a talent or a creator, to market their brand authentically to engage a new fan base.
yeah. In the first 3 years of NIL in college, 80% of NIL deals are based on social media. Probably not a surprise.
Hmm.
60% are with local businesses. Okay. So it's not the big athletes and the big major brands that dominate the numbers. The numbers are dominated by everyday athletes, everyday people in local communities connecting, right? How can athletes take advantage of it? Like, what would be some key points of advice for a young athlete that wants to be an influencer, use their celebrity as a quality high school athlete, a college athlete, or almost any level? What are some of the things they need to understand, knowing that probably social media is the platform that they're going to be exposed to?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that people know a couple of things and a couple of insights. The influencer creator economy, there's a lot of money out there. And what I mean by that is, um, the creator economy or influencer economy could reach $500 billion by 2027. That's crazy, right? And I also want to say that close to 70% of youth trust what an athlete, an influencer, or creator says about a brand and what a brand says about itself. And I think you understand what that means, right? It's as simple
Sure.
as this. Like, you like, let's say, Mark, you and I are best friends. You're an influencer in my life, right? And I'm an influencer in your life. And we lived in California all our life. We moved to Boston and we see best tacos in town. And we look at each other like, that's not true. There's no way. Tacos are better in California. It's not until I try it and I tell you, hey, Mark, they're actually really good tacos. I'm an influencer in your life. You're going to try the tacos. Similar ideology, right, with how athletes and creators and influencers work with brands. Um, going back to your question, I you got to build your audience, obviously, right? And how you do that are many ways. Content is king. Content, content, content. Authenticity is king. Being real, being true to yourself. And once you start building a platform and building an audience base, um, and you'll start to get noticed. And like, the funny thing is, a lot of people are trying to create viral moments, which is smart. And it could be a lot of things. It could be There's a kid I work with. I hate to call him a kid. Sorry, destroying. He could kick a 60-yard field goal with both legs. That will go viral. So if you're able to like understand the algorithm and understand like there are certain things that could get you on the map on what you create to be creative, that's very important. But building your audience to try to get these brands' attention are super important.
What does engagement rate mean in this scenario?
Well, it's very simple. I mean, there's a lot of tools out there that brands can use to to measure like if an athlete has 10,000 followers, they can see of that 10,000 how many are engaging with the content. So if you're above 5%, you're winning. Um, it's I think the standard is like it's low. It's like 2%. Most people only get 2% engagement. There are many people that get over 20%, over 50%. Like I said, content is key. Being authentic to yourself is key. Um, Access to your life is key. Because essentially these creators and influencers and athletes, they become an extension of your family. That's what social's doing, right? You have access to their lives. You get to know who they are. You get to see what they're eating when they're traveling, and you feel like you know them. And so they're engaging. It's relatable, and so engaging your audience is extremely important, and that also helps build brand deals and relationships.
Yeah, it's the storytelling part of it, I think is hard for people to share. We have athletes that, have large followings just because they're great athletes, not because, I mean, I recently worked with a kid at a college that had, I think, close to 5,000 followers. He'd only posted 9 times on his Instagram account, but because he was, a celebrated athlete and successful on the field with football player, he had this huge following. How can we help someone like that leverage that, or is that just not what an influencer is?
How can they leverage the followers they have? Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
so they're not active on social yet. They have this huge following, and a good engagement rate, but they have very limited posts, like less than 10. What would you tell someone like that? How would you get them to understand the power that they possess?
Yeah, I mean, they have to understand like social media pages these days are a business. It's like a business, right? And it's your own business, it's your real estate. And the way you run that is how it could benefit you and lead to more opportunities. Going back to what I said, content is king.
Yeah,
If this guy is a great athlete, just even showing the way this person works out
yeah,
or like routines or what they eat or the music they're listening to. Like that's all content because you've got a fan already because they like the way you play, but they want to get to know you. They want to know like, all right, if it's you, Mark, like I want to know like what does Mark listen to? How does he get ready? What does he care about? What TV shows does he watch? It's like, getting to know that person and that's how you build your audience. Content is king. You got to just continue. I deal with a lot of creators now and influencers and they always will tell you content is king. Keep putting out content. Some may do well, some may not. Staying consistent is extremely important to build your audience and your engagement.
yeah. The National Football League is on an obvious path to world domination. They continue to expand the game and their influence around the world, which means it's a diverse audience, right? What works in the United States may not work in Europe or in Mexico City or wherever it is that the NFL wants to go. How do you account for that in your influencer marketing? Do you get local influencers? Do you try and dominate other countries with American influencers? What's your
No,
mindset
no.
about that?
There's many ways to grow your brand globally or to grow the league globally. What we do is we've got a team in that are local that are from those areas that understand that what that community cares about. It's very different from the U.S. And you
Sure.
got to remember too, American football is not their number one sport.
Mm,
Soccer is, the real football to them is, right? So
sure.
essentially, you're trying to sell the game or get them excited about the game, and there are many ways to do that. And it's simple as inviting people out to a game and let them
Yeah.
experience themselves, right? And so we do a lot of that. We also work with a lot of creators and influencers and athletes from different countries and fly them into the U.S. to come to an NFL game so they can check it out and vice versa, right? So we also invite like a local soccer star to a game who is an influencer, right? And they're posting they're at the NFL game and this is an amazing play. I I will say like yeah, we target people that are football fans already, but we target more people that aren't football fans because
Mhm.
essentially we're trying to convert them to be a fan, and we do that so many different ways. And I can go on and on, but it's through our players. Our players are gamers. If there's a really great gamer that we want to align with that doesn't like football, but then we create like a Madden tournament and they get to be with an athlete, like we're essentially he's engaged, right? Because he likes gaming and he gets to do it with a pro athlete. And now we're in, we're in, showcasing them to our artists. So there's many ways, but and then you hit it earlier. Authentic storytelling is absolute key.
Yeah,
Kids can sniff, kids can sniff an ad. We
yeah,
stay away from that. We're very authentic and we're really big into storytelling.
yeah. I think that's great advice right there. Well, listen, name, image, and likeness is my business. Influencer marketing is your business. There's a lot of crossover there because, as I said, so many young people today are using social media to gain opportunities. But the key thing is to me is looking forward from a career standpoint. I think your career advice early on in the conversation is as valuable as your insights into influencer marketing. So, Eddie Capobianco, I want to thank you for being a guest on the podcast and sharing your story and your insights and wisdom in the industry.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And obviously, if anyone, whoever sees this and they have a question, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help out if I can.
You know, Joe Cannon, our common friend there, had a great saying. He said, when you worked at Sports Studio, which is our company in Los Angeles, yeah, you should be the coolest person at every party that you go to. Well, I think I've been trumped today by Eddie Capobianco.
Well, I talk to you all the time about this, so I'm not the
All right, Eddie, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
absolutely.